I've built in this really cool thing. I love Google so much. It's not a commercial, but if you have questions, you can actually get out your phone, get onto the internet, type that in, and the questions will be waiting for me at the end of the presentation if you so desire. Pretty cool. Okay, so my presentation today is called Fake News, Origins, Effects, and the Fight Ahead. So fake news is on the tip of everyone's tongue. Living through 2016, we've seen almost everything. We don't know what's coming next, and sometimes we don't know what to believe. So I wanted to go through a couple of things today about where this idea came from and how to separate it. And the first thing I wanted to discuss is our long tradition of satire. So there's a difference between putting on a costume, writing a play, writing a story, and presenting that fiction. And from Lysistrata and the Frogs to Commedia dell'arte, putting on that show and poking fun at power or exposing hypocrisy with comedy is a long tradition, and a fun one at that. As we see in our modern cavalcade of hits, anything from, my favorite as a child, not necessarily the news, to the Weekend Update on Saturday Night Live. But before that, Thomas Nast and his political cartooning was very crucial. George Orwell's modern day Aesop's Fables, Mad Magazine, a perennial favorite, still very relevant today. These are our traditions and part of our freedoms in the United States. I teach a class, and it's populated mostly with Saudi students, and it's incredibly informative to me because every week I learn more about my own freedom by listening to their experiences in their country. We live in the era of the alternative fact, and as probably our best satirists have shown us, like Colbert, Jon Stewart, sometimes these coinages of words come out, and they just are gifts that come down from the comedy gods. And I'm sure we've all seen Kellyanne Conway practically choking on the phrase alternative facts when she was being interviewed by Chuck Todd here. So what is this era all about? Here are some alternative facts throughout history. The earth is flat. Jesus is white. Slaves were happy. Jews caused World War II. AIDS is a gay problem. Iraq had weapons of mass destruction, and it was indeed the largest inauguration crowd in history. This article is from a site called Upworthy.com. Now, when you see these things, thank you for mentioning confirmation bias earlier. My class never goes by without mentioning that phrase, confirmation bias. It's something we always are thinking about and always bringing to the forefront of our discussion. So many times, if I'm engaged in some kind of social media spat with somebody, if somebody puts up a fact, the first thing they look at is the source, but typically not for themselves. If they see something and want to make that so, want to believe it's real, they bring that in, and it's okay. But if you present that to somebody, then all of a sudden the source becomes contentious, Snopes in particular, right? So Upworthy.com actually has a verification system where they check their own work. Now, that's kind of like cigarettes, it's toasted. All of them are. All of these journalistic sites should be fact-checked. They're making a point to say they are. So they have a little certification in the corner of their articles now, right? I think we will start to see more of that in all media outlets because it's becoming so important, because fake news is so pervasive and dangerous. So, alternative facts, the largest in history, huh? We all saw the evidence. So, with our own eyes, when we see a fact, that there were this many people in 2017 and this many people in 2009. That's me right there. When you see that and the phrase gets debunked, yet still repeated, Mr. Spicer said this was the largest audience to ever witness an inauguration, period, both in person and around the globe. I looked out, the field it looked like 1.5 million people, said Trump to the CIA just after that. Completely discredited by the Park Service of all people, right? So when you repeat those things, and you repeat them ad nauseum, they tend to gain traction. And that is beyond my scope in communications. That's something to do with psychology. There's something there in us that is not functioning properly when those facts come up, which I'll talk about in a little bit. Now, we have to say, where is fake news coming from? Where is it coming from? And why does it work? That's pretty interesting. You mentioned Pizzagate and had a much better graphic than mine, but I will tell you a little bit about Pizzagate because it was a piece written purely as a piece of fake news for monetary reasons. And it's dangerous because somebody showed up at this pizzeria with a loaded gun, demanding to see the basement so he could inspect the place where Hillary Clinton was running a pedophile ring. Pizzagate in a nutshell, right? A fake news story, real world consequences. So, is there something more sinister going on? Senate Intelligence Committee leaders have received reports that Russia hired at least 1,000 trolls to spread fake news stories to hurt Democratic candidate Hillary Clinton during the presidential election. As if she needed help. Look, there's a big blame pie to go around on the election, and everybody gets a slice. But what role did fake news play in the results of the election? In this graph, we are seeing something called engagements. We do this all the time with social media. An engagement is a click to read the story, to like the story, or to leave some emoticon as your reaction to the story, or to share the story. So engagements are moneymakers. So if you could put out a fake news story and it gains traction and goes viral, that could bring money your way. That's a pretty big motivator. Now, to bring this into the Herscher language, is it ethical? I can't necessarily speak to that, but I can certainly say it's legal. In the United States, it's absolutely legal to create completely erroneous fictional stories like this and simply release them into the public. So ethically, certainly, we have to think about that. But if a site is parading as a journalistic endeavor, that's a different story altogether. And now we're seeing that that line is completely blurred, and we can't figure out, in a lot of ways, the difference between a satirical site, a fake news site, and a legitimate site, mostly because of the way this fake news idea has been weaponized. It's become an attack. Here in this graph, this is 2016, between February and April, engagements in mainstream news drop precipitously from 12 million all the way down to Election Day to 7.3. Nearly half the engagements over that period of time because something strange was happening. Fake news was skyrocketing. And we still don't know the extent of Russian involvement, whether or not this was homegrown, why this is happening. There's still so much to unpack from this experience of late 2016. So the weaponized term. The president uses fake media and these adjectives to describe these cable companies and journalistic companies. Fake media, not real media, has gotten even worse since the election. Every story is badly slanted. We have to hold them to the truth. So clearly, he does not understand the meaning of the word fake compared to what he's really trying to say, which is biased. right? Here is a quote from an anonymous commenter commenting on an actual fake news article. Thank God for the alternative media that saves us from the mainstream garbage by showing us the truth. That is an eye-opening reality of what's happening to journalism right now. It is absolutely under attack by this weaponized term of fake news. So the effects of fake news. Here we see an article, Trump blames fake media for treating Flynn very unfairly. Again, doesn't understand the difference between fake and some kind of prosecution. The Washington Post talks about the effect of fake news. Here, it was the best evidence I've seen of the folly of Mr. Trump's anti-press approach. You can't spend more than a year attacking the credibility of the dishonest media and then expect to use its journalism as support for your position during an international crisis. He had it easy in the first couple months. All he had to deal with were pussy hats, right? Now it's getting real. Now North Korea, Syria, Russia, things are getting very, very dire. And when you cry wolf and you don't understand what an Aesop's fable is, you don't understand the satire, you're going to run into some trouble, as he's striking that famous pose right there. So why do people fall for fake news? Agnotology, which is a term coined by Robert Proctor, who is a science historian from Stanford University, says that it is the study of willful acts to spread confusion and deceit, usually to sell a product or win favor. So what does that mean? Will you fall for it? We all think we are impervious to this. We all think we will get to the bottom of the issue. We are immune from spreading fake news ourselves. Well, are we good at it or not? Nope. In one word, nope. A majority are confident in their ability to recognize fake news. Look at the numbers here. These are people who are somewhat to very confident that they could tell the difference between fake and real news. Okay? This is our self-analysis. This is 15% of people who are pretty honest. We all belong here, right? Myself included. Because do I have the time at every turn to figure out whether or not something is real? This report from NPR, researchers at Stanford's Graduate School of Education have spent more than a year evaluating how well students across the country can evaluate sources of information. 7,800 student responses collected, researchers shocked, their word, by how many students failed to effectively evaluate the credibility of the information they were finding. Students displayed the stunning and dismaying consistency in their responses. The scientists were looking for a reasonable bar, not any high-level analysis, to tell a fake account from real ones, activist groups from neutral group sources, and ads from articles. 80% of middle schoolers believe that sponsored content was a real news story. Sponsored content, of course, is an advertisement. That stuff you see in that sidebar on Facebook, like dentists hate her. Many assume that because young people are fluent in social media, the forehead generation must be okay with social media. They get it, they understand it. The study shows exactly the opposite is true. So what's ahead? When we talk to others about our beliefs, our political stances, and we engage in social media, we engage face-to-face, which is more rare, I think, than engaging in social media and these things, we're experiencing what's called the backfire effect. And you could probably figure out what this means. Misinformed people do not change their minds once they've been presented with facts that challenge their beliefs. So I don't know about the priming. We'll have to have a drink, sit down, and talk about this. What happens when you do, in fact, give people facts? Well, research shows that they are likely to become more attached to their mistaken beliefs when you present them with facts. And then more research suggests that bringing in facts to support your case makes them believe you even less. Wow. So what are we going to do about it? In my Media and Democracy class, I teach a single class called Let's Talk About Bullshit. And thank you for saying it first before I did. So I'm really happy about that. I was like, yes, I don't have to say it first. So there is a class in the University of Washington, and it's mostly about big data. It's about scientists using data and massaging the data and leading us to false conclusions. They also have a fake news component. I'm in communications, so I'm certainly just narrowly focused on how journalism works and how the fake news industry is working. So talking about it is incredibly important. Oh, there's an SLO I wanted to share with you for this course, right? The student learning outcome for this course. Quote, at the end of the course, students should be able to, quote, provide your crystals and homeopathy aunt or casually racist uncle with an accessible and persuasive explanation of why a claim is bullshit according to the syllabus. What can you do about it? Well, Slate is certainly taking it upon themselves with a new debunking tool built into their site, which is same as Upworthy. Hoaxy is searching for where the fake information comes from, and they're using these charts to analyze the data and visualize the data, and hopefully put a stop to where this stuff is coming from. And then if you are in the Chrome browser, I'm sure the other browsers can do this too, but you can add extensions to your Chrome browser that point out fake news, which is really cool. So you go to the extensions and you add extensions and you find the fake news extension. There's a little F that sits in the top of your browser up in the corner. And whenever you do search results, it flags things that are either clickbait, unlikely, it'll flag fake news as well. So you can actually see that these algorithms are out there trying to figure out what is real and what is not. And a lot of these sites don't like that because they're getting flagged and they're getting pushed down in the SEO. So what do? Know the source. Look at the source. Pay attention to the source. Where does it come from? I have a pool of journalistic sites that I definitely trust. Will they get something wrong? Yeah, the Daily Beast got something wrong at the Olympics. They outed a gay athlete. And then they apologized for it, and then they did something about it. It's different than publishing a story that is just baseless and false, right? They're a journalistic organization. They made a mistake. They atoned. They moved on. I trust what they say, and then that will live in infamy on the alt-right, and they will forever be a site that is untrustable, right? Because of that one instance, while they, flood us with literal fake news. Finding a second source. I see this a lot on Facebook. I see a fantastical report that something happened and the article points to itself, essentially, or it's a blog, or it's simply an opinion. Know the difference between opinion and verified journalism. There is a huge difference between a blog and a site that is a journalistic site. Fact-checking sites like Snopes, factcheck.org, and PolitiFact. Some are crowdsourced, some are staffed by professional journalists. You should definitely run those stories through these websites before sharing. There is a stunning piece of technology out there now. We think we've got it bad with fake news stories and photoshopped images, but fake video is here. There's software that could take a clip of video from any person, any world figure, any politician, whoever it is, and target the lips and the eyes and the nose and facial movements and map it onto that person. So anyone sitting there can essentially take over the face of Vladimir Putin or Donald Trump and say whatever they want to say and create completely fabricated pieces of video. So now you can't even believe your own eyes and ears. And share responsibly. We're all out there on the road. Right? This is available on my website, MediaMatrixShow.com, which is where we archive all of the shows that I make with my Media and Democracy class. Emily's one of them. John back there has taken the class. We make TV shows and podcasts, and it's all about this kind of content. I hope you enjoy it, and please join me there.